You think you know desperate battles? Marines backed against the ocean, enemy ships filling the horizon, odds that make survival impossible. But Wake Island in 1941 flips the script. 449 Marines holding a coral atoll smaller than Central Park. 2,500 Japanese sailors and soldiers coming in waves. 16 days of hell that rewrote Pacific warfare. How do you turn certain death into legend? If you value documented World War II Pacific history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. The script is researched and factual, using sources from the National Archives and Samuel Eliot Morrison's official naval history. Now back to the story. December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor burns. You're Major James Devereaux, commanding Wake's Marine garrison. Your strip of coral sits 1,500 miles west of Hawaii. 3 tiny islets connected by causeways. Peacock Point, Wake Proper, Wilkes Island. No hills, no cover, nowhere to run. 449 Marines, 68 Navy personnel, over 1,000 civilian construction workers finishing an airfield, 12 Grumman Wildcats, 6 5-inch coastal guns. Your job just became impossible. The island measures just 2.5 miles long, 1 mile wide at its widest point. Elevation never exceeds 21 feet above sea level. Fresh water comes from a single lens underneath the coral. Rain catchment systems store what nature provides. No natural harbor. Supply ships anchor offshore and ferry everything through the surf. Pan American Airways built the first facilities here in 1935. Flying boats to Asia needed fuel stops. Wake became America's stepping stone to the Philippines. Commander Winfield Cunningham runs the Naval Air Station. Major Devereaux commands the 1st Marine Defense Battalion. Tension between Navy and Marine command structures. Both answer to Washington. Both know help is 2,000 miles away. Civilian contractors work for Morrison Knudsen Company. They're building runways, not fighting wars. Most never held weapons. Some refuse to touch them even when death comes calling. December 8th. Dawn breaks with bomber engines. 36 Japanese planes from Kwajalein. They catch 8 Wildcats on the ground, destroy the fuel dump, kill 23 Marines. Your air power cut in half. Radio crackles from Honolulu. No reinforcements coming. You're on your own. Captain Henry Elrod leads the surviving pilots. 4 operational Wildcats against the Japanese Empire. Marine Fighting Squadron, 2-on-1 down to skeleton strength. Ground crews work miracles. Sergeant Hamilton McAllister patches bullet holes with tin cans and prayers. Aviation fuel runs low. No replacement parts. Mechanics cannibalize wrecked planes to keep others flying. Each sortie might be the last. The civilian contractors face their moment of truth. Dan Teeters, Project Superintendent Inc., calls his men together. We can run or we can fight. Most stay. They know the boats that brought them won't take them home. Paul Putnam's pilots need runway repairs, bomb craters filled with coral and cement. Work crews drag equipment through the sand while Japanese planes circle overhead. Some contractors grab rifles from dead Marines. Others stick to their shovels and bulldozers. Both choices take courage. December 9th and 10th. Daily bombing raids. Japanese destroy the hospital. The communications center, the fuel tanks. Marines dig deeper into coral that cuts like glass. Private First Class. Wiley Sloan's foxhole takes a direct hit. His body shields 3 other Marines. They live because he died first. No time for proper burials. Bodies wrapped in canvas and covered with coral chunks. The living fight from graves of the dead. But Major Devereaux has a secret weapon. Battery A, commanded by Lieutenant Clarence Barninger. 2 5-inch guns hidden in the scrub. December 11th, 05:30 hours. Japanese invasion fleet appears. Light cruiser Yubari leading. 2 destroyers, Hayate and Oite. 11 troop transports. Admiral Sadamichi Kajioka expects a quick landing. Your Marines wait in silence. Kajioka studied Pearl Harbor tactics, hit the defenses, land the troops. Declare victory. Wake looks defenseless from the sea. No visible gun positions, no heavy fortifications. Intelligence reports exaggerate American weakness. Japanese planners expect token resistance. They allocate 1 day for the entire operation. Admiral Yamamoto approved the assault plan in 30 minutes. Sometimes overconfidence kills. The Japanese formation approaches in line ahead. Yubari at 4,000 tons displacement. Main armament of 6 5.5-inch guns. Destroyer Hayate follows 800 yards astern. Her 4 5-inch guns trained on the island. Oite brings up the rear. Behind them, transport ships loaded with Special Naval Landing Force troops. Marines in all but name. Japan's elite amphibious assault force. They've never failed to take an objective. 0610 hours. Yubari opens fire at 9,000 yards. Shells splash around Battery A. Barninger holds his fire. His guns are vintage 1918. Effective range, 6,000 yards. Maximum range, 12,000 in perfect conditions. These aren't perfect conditions. Wind gusts to 30 knots. Spray covers the gun sights. Barninger needs the Japanese closer. Much closer. Commence firing. The first American naval victory of the war happens on land. Battery A's second shot hits Yubari's bridge. Admiral Kajioka wounded. His flagship reels away burning. Destroyer Hayate races in to help. Fatal mistake. Battery L, commanded by Lieutenant David Clower, hammers her with 5 rounds. Direct hit to the magazine. Hayate vanishes in a fireball. All 168 hands lost instantly. The explosion throws debris 200 feet into the air. Steel fragments rain down on nearby ships. Transport crews panic. Some cut their anchor cables and run for open water. Admiral Kajioka bleeds from shrapnel wounds but stays on his bridge. Japanese naval doctrine demands death before dishonor. Retreat equals disgrace, but his ships are dying around him. Even samurai must face reality. Captain Henry Elrod climbs into his damaged Wildcat, 13 bullet holes in the wings. Engine running rough, oil pressure dropping. Radio shot out. He spots destroyer Kisaragi trying to rescue Hayate survivors. Single 500-pound bomb under his fuselage. No backup, no wingman. One chance to make it count. He dives through anti-aircraft fire that fills the sky with steel. Perfect hit. Kisaragi explodes and sinks. 400 sailors down. 2 Japanese warships destroyed in one morning by a handful of Marines on a coral rock nobody heard of. Elrod's plane limps back to Wake with engine parts falling into the ocean. Ground crews patch holes they can see and pray about the ones they can't. 4 Wildcats become 3, then 2. Math of attrition favors nobody. Kajioka retreats. Radio intercept from his flagship. Invasion of Wake postponed. Pearl Harbor commanders can't believe it. Wake Island just handed Japan its first tactical defeat of the Pacific War. Messages flood in from around the world. Churchill cables, Roosevelt. What men? Stalin asks for details through diplomatic channels. Wake becomes the symbol of American resistance when everything else crumbles. Japanese lose face across the Pacific. Newspapers in Tokyo suppress the story. Radio broadcasts claimed technical difficulties delayed the operation, but ship captains know the truth. 2 destroyers rest on the bottom near Wake Island. Their crews died attacking a handful of Marines with old guns and desperate courage. Face matters more than truth in Japanese culture. The Wake defeat demands overwhelming response. If you value stories of courage like this, subscribe. We uncover the documented details others miss. Also comment your city. Now back to Wake's final hours. December 12th through 22nd. Bombing intensifies. Japanese planes hit the island daily from multiple directions. Kawanishi flying boats attack at night. Mitsubishi bombers pound positions during the day. Sleep becomes impossible. Food runs low. Water runs lower. Marines ration both like gold. 1 canteen per day. 1 can of beans, shared between 4 men. Hunger weakens reflexes when reflexes mean life or death. Medical supplies dwindle to nothing. Dr. Gustav Kahn operates without anesthesia. Shrapnel wounds cleaned with seawater. Infection spread in the tropical heat. Bandages made from torn shirts. Morphine reserved for the dying. Lieutenant John Kinney takes shrapnel in both legs but stays at his gun position. Pain is luxury Marines can't afford. The wounded fight beside the healthy until they can't lift their weapons. Marines dig deeper into positions that offer no protection. Coral cuts hands and knees raw. Every shovelful draws blood. Private Robert Phoenix's foxhole caves in during bombing. His squad mates dig for 6 hours to find his body. They keep digging positions around him. The living and dead share the same ground. Both serve the same cause. Civilian contractors join the fighting despite having no military training. Dan Teeters leads work crews repairing the airfield under fire. They patch craters by night, dodge bombs by day. Morrison nudes and bulldozers push coral and sand into bomb holes. Drivers work without lights to avoid Japanese attention. Some never see the bombs that kill them. Others hear the whistle and dive for cover that doesn't exist. Paul Putnam's mechanics perform miracles with scrap metal and determination. Sergeant Robert Borken rebuilds engines using parts from 3 different planes. Aviation fuel gets stretched with automotive gasoline. Oil leaks plugged with chewing gum and prayers. Each Wildcat that takes off might never return. Each landing might be the last. Mathematics of war always favor the enemy when they have more everything. December 20th. Japanese submarines surface offshore. Deck guns shell Marine positions. No warning, no declaration. Shells arrive before the sound of firing. I-boats withdraw before shore batteries can respond. Psychological warfare mixed with real explosives. Marines never know when death comes from sea or sky. Constant threat breaks some men's minds. Others grow harder with each attack. Commander Cunningham receives final radio message from Pearl Harbor. No reinforcements available. Hold as long as possible. Translation: you're expendable. Die slowly to buy time for others. Make the Japanese pay for every yard of coral. Your deaths might save lives somewhere else. Cold comfort for men already counting their last hours. But Marines understand the mission. They've always understood the mission. December 22nd, Japanese return with overwhelming force. 2 fleet carriers, Soryu and Hiryu, 6 heavy cruisers, 8 destroyers, over 2,000 fresh troops. Admiral Kajioka learned his lesson. This time he's taking no chances. Task force assembled from Pearl Harbor attack forces. Veteran pilots who bombed Battleship Row. Experienced Marines who took Guam and Wake Island becomes their hardest fight. 0130 hours. Japanese landing craft hit the beaches in darkness. Marines pour fire from hidden positions they've prepared for 2 weeks. Corporal Ralph Holowinski's machine gun crew holds Wilkes Island Beach. Interlocking fields of fire cut down assault waves. 40 Japanese dead in the surf. The water turns red in the moonlight, but more boats keep coming. Mathematics of invasion favor numbers over courage. Lieutenant Robert Hanna leads a counterattack with 22 men, hand-to-hand fighting in the darkness, bayonets and grenades. Americans fight with rifle butts when ammunition runs out. Japanese use swords and training that started in childhood. Hanna falls with his Marines around him. Bodies pile up in positions both sides died to hold. Dawn reveals carnage that would haunt survivors for decades. Japanese breakthrough comes at the weakest point in American lines, where the airfield meets the beach. Special Naval Landing Force troops pour through the gap. Marines fight from shell holes and wrecked buildings. Every position becomes a fortress until the defenders die. Private James Cox holds a machine gun nest alone for 2 hours. His body shows 17 bayonet wounds. The gun still points toward enemy positions. Some fights end only with the last breath. 0400 hours. Japanese breakthrough at multiple points. Major Devereaux pulls back to the command post. Ammunition nearly gone. Water contaminated with fuel oil and blood. Dead Marines scattered across positions they held to the end. Civilian contractors fight beside Marines with weapons picked up from the fallen. Some die clutching rifles they barely knew how to use. Courage doesn't require training when survival demands everything. Marine positions collapse one by one. Battery A fires its last shells at Japanese landing craft. Lieutenant Barninger spikes his guns with thermite grenades. Barrels melt into twisted metal. Better to destroy than surrender weapons to the enemy. Battery L follows the same procedure. 6 5-inch guns become useless, scrap metal. Marines retreat with small arms in desperation. Captain Wesley Platt radios from the airfield. A Japanese tanks rolling in. Last 4 Wildcats destroyed on the ground. Battery positions overrun. Marine aviation dies where it fought. Pilots become infantry in the final hours. They fight with rifles instead of machine guns mounted on wings. Death comes the same way, regardless of the weapon. Honor remains constant when everything else changes. 0530 hours. Major Devereaux faces the hardest choice any commander makes. Surrender or watch everyone die for nothing. Japanese control 3/4 of the island. Marine positions isolated and surrounded. No ammunition for sustained fighting. No water for the wounded. No hope for reinforcement or rescue. The mathematics of war reach final calculation. Pride costs lives when lives serve no purpose. 0752 hours. White flag goes up. Fighting stops with unnatural suddenness. Guns fall silent after 16 days of continuous combat. Marines emerge from positions that smell of cordite and death. 449 Marines held for 16 days against impossible odds. Japanese casualties, 820 dead. 333 wounded. 2 destroyers sunk, 7 ships damaged. American losses, 120 killed, 49 wounded. But here's what the history books miss. After surrender, Japanese officers walk the American positions with professional interest. They find Marine gun emplacements that held off regiment-sized attacks. Spider holes invisible from 10 feet away, improvised obstacles made from coral and scrap metal that channeled attacks into killing zones, fields of fire calculated to overlap and concentrate. Defensive engineering that impressed veteran assault troops who'd studied warfare since childhood. Captain Sakabara, Japanese commander, writes in his official report, "The American Marines fought with extraordinary tenacity. Every position had to be taken by direct assault. Their defensive preparation showed thorough understanding of combined arms tactics. Casualties reflect the skill and determination of defenders who refused to yield ground without exacting maximum cost from attackers. The prisoners get marched to the beach, where it all began 16 days earlier. Civilians separated from military personnel. Major Devereaux expects execution according to Japanese military tradition. Defeated commanders often choose ritual suicide over capture. Instead, Japanese officers bow to their Marine counterparts. Mutual respect between warriors transcends nationality when courage meets courage. Admiral Kajioka personally apologizes to Devereaux for the bombing of wounded and medical facilities. War has rules, even in the Pacific where quarter is rarely given or expected. Marine prisoners board transport ships for camps in Japan and China. Civilians remain on Wake Island as forced labor. They'll repair the airfield their countrymen damaged. Japanese plans call for turning Wake into an unsinkable aircraft carrier. Runways extended, gun positions reinforced. Radar stations constructed with American hands under Japanese supervision. Irony cuts deeper than coral when survival depends on serving the enemy. October 7th, 1943, 2 years after surrender, Captain Sakaibara orders 98 American civilians executed on Wake Island beach. Single machine gun operated by Japanese guards who've grown to hate their prisoners. Bodies dumped in a mass grave dug by the condemned men themselves. One civilian escapes execution through clerical error. He carves this message on a coral boulder. 98 US PW 5-10-43. The rock still stands as testimony to murder disguised as military necessity. The execution stems from American bombing raids that destroyed Japanese installations. Sakaibara blames civilian workers for sabotage and communication with attacking aircraft. No evidence supports the charges. Fear and frustration drive the decision. American submarines prowl nearby waters. B-24 bombers strike from distant bases. Wake Island becomes a liability instead of an asset. Japanese garrison grows desperate as the tide of war turns against them. August 1945. Japan surrenders unconditionally aboard USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. Marines return to Wake Island aboard the same transport ships that carried them away as prisoners. They find the coral boulder with its carved message. They find the mass grave marked by scattered human bones. They find Japanese records documenting the execution order and its implementation. War crimes, trials follow with mechanical precision. Justice served cold but certain. Captain Sakaibara faces military tribunal in Guam. Evidence includes his own written orders and testimony from surviving witnesses. Defense claims military necessity and adherence to Japanese military law. Prosecution demonstrates violation of Geneva Convention and basic human decency. Verdict reaches unanimous conclusion. Sakaibara hanged in Guam prison, March 19, 47. The rope breaks his neck as efficiently as bullets broke the necks of 98 Americans. Death equalizes all accounts eventually. Today, you can stand where Battery A fired the shots heard around the Pacific. 5-inch gun emplacement restored by National Park Service. Concrete still shows shrapnel scars from Japanese counter-battery fire. Metal fragments in the sand still sharp enough to cut unwary visitors. The airfield operates again with civilian flights, refueling on their way to Asia. Passengers never know they're walking over the bones of history buried beneath modern concrete and asphalt. Coral reefs offshore hide wreckage from both sides. Destroyer Hayat rests in 60 feet of water. Fish swim through gun barrels that once fired at American positions. Japanese graves dot the landscape beside American memorials. Death made equals of enemies when they shared the same small piece of coral in the middle of an ocean that cared nothing for their conflicts. Marine Corps. Historians spent decades collecting fragments of the Wake Island story. Official records burned in the invasion. Personal accounts scattered across prison camps and classified files. Slowly, the picture emerged from testimony of survivors who lived to tell what they remembered. Memory proves unreliable when trauma shapes recollection. Facts emerge from correlation of multiple sources and careful verification. But here's the detail that reframes everything. Marine Corps historians found Major Devereaux's final ammunition count in captured Japanese files. His surrender report listed exact quantities of remaining supplies when the white flag went up, December 22nd, 0700 hours. Wake Island's Marines had exactly 13 rounds of 5-inch ammunition left. 13 shells between continued resistance and inevitable annihilation. The number appears in Devereaux's own handwriting on a Japanese interrogation form, verified by Lieutenant Barninger's battery records recovered from enemy archives, cross-referenced with Japanese intelligence estimates of American defensive capability. 13 shells represented less than 3 minutes of sustained fire from both remaining batteries. The Pacific's Alamo held until the very last shot. Sometimes, heroes are measured not by what they accomplished, but by what they refused to surrender until mathematics made surrender inevitable.